Story 1. My dad left me our house when he died, but my mom kicked me out to live with her new family. 15 years later, I tried to take my house back, but they're threatening me, so I brought the cops. I'm a 24-year-old man. Let me start by saying I was kicked out by my mom because she needed to impress her new husband. Okay, kicked out might be harsh. She moved me out of my own house and made me live with my grandparents on my father's side. I have all the good memories until my dad was alive. Unfortunately, we lost him when I was 7. As a kid, I was devastated. I was very close to my dad, and sending him off in a coffin broke my heart. I still remember that moment very clearly, and it saddens me to this day. While I was still processing the loss, my mom showed up with another man and insisted I call him Dad. I was like, no way. I don't know if I was right or wrong, but it just didn't feel right to call him Dad just a few months after my father's death. After that first meeting, I often found him in my mom's bedroom. It was difficult to see how quickly my mom had moved on. She didn't even wait a year before bringing my dad's replacement into the house. I was not ready to accept him as my dad's replacement. I had recently turned 8 when they planned their big wedding. They put up a huge wedding for second-timers. None of my business, though. She left me with my grandparents while she went on her honeymoon. A month passed by, but she didn't return. I kept asking my grandparents when Mom would come to pick me up, but they didn't have any answers. Then suddenly she showed up one day. I was so excited to see her after so long. I rushed to hug her, but she had brought all my belongings to dump me at my grandparents'. I was heartbroken, to say the least. I lived with my grandparents until high school. I was happy with them. My mom used to show up sometimes only to tell me how much she loved and cared for me. Sometimes I would question her, if she loved me so much, why did she dump me at my grandparents'? She had no answer. She would try to cover it up by saying, oh, your grandparents are getting old. They need a helping hand to run their groceries and take out their trash much later. She admitted the actual reason. She had given my room to her stepchildren. My mom's husband, Bill, then had 2 children who moved into our house with Bill after their wedding. My mom prioritized her new family over me. It was natural for me to get resentful of her. So eventually I stopped bothering her. After high school, I moved out from my grandparents' house but still visited them often. They were kind of my saviors. They raised me. If not for them, my childhood would have been ruined. Now I'm 24. After working for a year in marketing, I thought of starting my own venture. I needed capital for that, so I thought of leasing my house. Oh, if I didn't mention this before, here's a bummer from my mom and her loving family. Actually, the house they are living in belongs to me. Yeah, that's right. My dad made a will on his deathbed and meticulously gave me every penny he had, including the house. I was a kid when his lawyer read his will after the funeral. But from the look on my mother's face, I can surely say she didn't like it at all. Later I got to know that she tried several times to overturn the will, but she lost every time. My dad made the will very precisely the house would be mine, but I could only sell it after I turned 21. Until then, no one could touch the property. My grandparents think Dad probably foresaw Mom's plan, and that's why he made a rigid will. Otherwise, she might have manipulated me in my childhood to give away the house to her. Last month I called Mom to inform her about my plan to lease out the house, but she didn't answer my calls. This week when I went to visit my grandparents, I told them I was planning to make some extra bucks from the house. They gave a weird reaction. I asked them what was the matter. They said I might face a lot of resistance to vacate the house from Mom because her stepdaughter is pregnant with a teenage boy who has run away from his responsibilities. Also, Bill has lost his full-time job and is working at a store in the evenings. So basically, they are in bad shape financially. Now I really don't know what to do. I mean, I also need that house now. I quit my job and need capital to start my business. Update 1. It became quite dramatic. Picking up from where I left off, my grandparents informed me that Mom and her family are going through a rough patch, so they might not vacate my house. I thought I would inform Mom about my plan and give them a few months to get their lives together. Before that, I was thinking of giving a month's notice, but knowing their situation, I thought of giving 3 to 4 months. Since Mom was not answering my call, I went to meet her at home. The house was nothing like before, and neither was my mom. Both had a cold vibe. Maybe she had sensed the motive behind my visit. On seeing me at the door, she gave out a fake smile and a half-hearted hug. Mind you, we were meeting after almost a decade. Yeah, she stopped visiting me after I entered my teenage years. I had turned bitter towards her. Why wouldn't I? Even though we met after so many years, she didn't bother to ask how I had been. She was not interested in knowing anything about me. It was like, oh, you're here. Must be something important that brought you to my door. The pleaser in me said, oh no, nothing important, just came to check on you. It's been a long time, she smiled and said, sure. It is a wave of silence followed for another 5 minutes until I stood up to leave. It was definitely unpleasant. I didn't feel welcomed at all. Besides Mom, my pregnant stepsister was also home, and she too gave me a very bad look as if I was there to create some sort of trouble. For the moment I dropped the idea of taking back the house. I explored other means of arranging the money for my business. But Mom crossed all limits of narcissism. Last week was my dad's 15th death anniversary. My grandparents held a small prayer ceremony at the church. Since I was in town, I decided to have a decent ceremony by feeding the poor and giving off some gifts to underprivileged children. I invited my friends and relatives for the prayer. I emailed the invite to Mom as well, but she didn't respond. When I traced the history of the email, I found she hadn't opened it. This was my first email to her. I thought it went to the spam folder or something, so I showed up at her house again. This time Mom wasn't home. My stepsister Brenda answered the door. No hello, no greetings, just a straight question slapped on my face. You're back again? What's the matter? I said I was there to meet Mom. She said, with the way she spoke to you last time, do you think she wants to meet you again? She said it so bluntly that I couldn't get what she meant. I spat out that I was there to invite Mom for the prayer ceremony for my dad. She chuckled in my face and said, that was like centuries ago. You're still holding that up? Get over it, I said. Excuse me, he was my dad. And it's none of your business to comment. She rolled her eyes and pushed off to her room. I sat there like an idiot for a few more minutes and then left a note for Mom on the table. I asked her to call me back. She called me the next day, and I told her about the prayer ceremony. She remained quiet for a minute and then said she wouldn't be able to make it because she had to take Brenda for a checkup. That was a bummer. I mean, she could have said she would try, but turning it down outrightly was disappointing. I replied sarcastically, yeah, of course they are your priority. We are no one to you, so be it. Good luck raising that narcissistic woman and her bastard child. She flipped out that I used that word. I said, why would I be nice to her when she was so mean to me? She made fun of my emotions to defend her, Mom said. It was natural for her to get furious. You can't talk about death in front of a pregnant woman. You're such an insensitive dud like your father. The moment she said that, I lost my mind. I yelled at her that she should not talk trash about my father. If anyone is insensitive here, it has to be her. The way she was talking about my dead father. She said, your father died 15 years ago, goddamn, get over it. I said, sure, the way you did within weeks or maybe days, who knows, you know what, you don't need to come. My father wouldn't like your prayer after seeing your true colors. I hung up the phone. That same day I hired a lawyer and started the process of sending a legal notice of eviction. The lawyer took some 15 days to validate my dad's will and send the notice to Mom. As expected, when the eviction notice reached them, she freaked out. Apparently she never expected that I would actually take the legal route. She called me again to confront me. She said, you little brat. How could you send an eviction notice to your own mother? I replied calmly. So after 15 years I'm your son again? For your information, you won't be on the street. I've given you a 6-month notice period. Find a place. By then she was hysterical. I could hear Bill asking her who it was on the phone, but she paid no heed to him. She threatened me by saying, you don't know what I've done to protect your dad's house. I've spent my life paying off the debts he had left us with. This house is as much mine as it is yours. I said, thanks for paying off the debts, but I own this house, and I'm exercising my right to evict you. I could have given a month's notice, but I considered your current situation and gave you 6 months. She didn't utter a word after that. I said, you can contact my lawyer if you want to talk any further. Have a good day, and I hung up. In another 10 minutes I got a call from my grandparents. They were worried that I had pushed the situation to a point where there was no going back. I said, I'm ready to face it. I gave them 6 months to find another place. They said it wasn't just about vacating the house. Mom could go to the extent of doing some harm to me. That made me think about the situation seriously. She can do anything. Since Dad's death, she has been behaving weirdly. I hired security at my place. They are not always around, but I keep them during the nights. They are around to protect me in case things go south. I won't be moving in the house immediately, but once it's vacated, I'll have it renovated and then either rent it or sell it off. I'll start my business with whatever profit I make. But I'm worried, my mother is making things worse. I hope things don't go very ugly, otherwise I'll have to take some extreme steps. My mother is threatening me with dire consequences. She has freaked out and is behaving in a psychotic way. I don't know how this situation will turn out, but I've made up my mind to take back my house at any cost. Story 2. I yelled at my mom's doctor, because she had been condescending to my mother. Now she's accusing me of trying to ruin her life. I am a 25-year-old woman. My mom has been sick for years, and her condition has only gotten worse over time. As a family, we've been through a lot. My dad passed away when I was young, and my mom has been my rock. She's done everything she can to provide for us and make sure we had a good life, even when she was struggling with her health. Recently, her doctor has been nothing but rude and condescending to her. It's like she doesn't care about my mom's well-being at all. My mom has always been a fighter, but seeing her treated this way has been heartbreaking. The final straw came during my mom's last appointment. The doctor was dismissive, and when my mom tried to explain her symptoms, the doctor just brushed her off and said she was overreacting. My mom was in tears, and I couldn't take it anymore. I yelled at the doctor, telling her she had no right to treat my mom that way. I demanded she show some respect and listen to my mom's concerns. The doctor was taken aback, and I could see the anger in her eyes. She accused me of trying to ruin her reputation and said I had no right to speak to her that way. I told her that if she had been doing her job properly, I wouldn't have had to. Since then, the doctor has been making my mom's life even more difficult. She's been less responsive, and appointments have been rescheduled multiple times without notice. It's clear she's holding a grudge. My mom is worried that the doctor will refuse to treat her altogether, but she doesn't have many other options for medical care. I'm torn between continuing to stand up for my mom and risking further backlash from the doctor, or staying quiet and letting my mom be treated poorly. This doctor is well respected in our community, and I'm afraid that if I push too hard, it could have serious consequences for my mom's health. My mom keeps telling me to let it go, but I can't stand seeing her treated this way. I've tried looking for other doctors, but the wait lists are long, and we can't afford private care. I don't know what to do. I just want my mom to be treated with the respect and care she deserves, but it feels like every step I take to defend her only makes things worse. Update 1. After much consideration and many conversations with my mom, we decided to file a formal complaint against the doctor. We gathered all the documentation and evidence of her unprofessional behavior, including instances where she dismissed my mom's concerns, rescheduled appointments without notice, and was generally unresponsive. My mom was hesitant at first, fearing retaliation, but I assured her that we were doing the right thing. We submitted the complaint to the hospital administration and requested a review of her case. To our relief, the administration took our complaint seriously and launched an investigation. In the meantime, they assigned my mom to a different doctor who was more compassionate and attentive to her needs. This new doctor listened to my mom, took her concerns seriously, and developed a more comprehensive treatment plan for her condition. My mom's health has started to improve, and she's feeling more hopeful about her future. As for the original doctor, we don't know the outcome of the investigation yet, but we're hopeful that our complaint will bring about some accountability and prevent her from treating other patients the way she treated my mom. It's been a tough journey, but standing up for my mom was the right thing to do, and I'm glad we took action.